Okay, something happened to us this past holiday season that has not happened to us for 20 years.
Yep.
You know what I'm about to say?
Yep.
What we're talking about?
Yep.
Take it away. What happened?
For the first time, we didn't have all three of our kids at the holidays. And so this Thanksgiving, we were missing our oldest, who was on set today. This is our kitchen, but on set. Our 19-year-old had to stay back and work on his job.
Had to work. It was such a moment for me as a parent because I'm so proud of him that he has a job, that he's faithful to it. I mean, I don't want to brag, but he's been promoted to shift manager. And that he's responsible. But at the same time, it was a little gut-wrenching.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I suggested that I pay him the same amount that he was going to make at his job. I was like, bro, I'll just pay you, and then you can just come to Thanksgiving.
Oh my gosh,
he's a good man.
He's my son that he didn't take us up on it.
He wasn't doing that, yeah.
It's so our season of parenting is very unique right now, and I just cannot even quantify how quickly our season changed. I feel like we had toddlers yesterday. I felt like we were like talking about what it's like to discipline and to train them and to shape their identity, blah, blah, blah. And here we are. Our topic today is adult children, is what it's like becoming parents of adult children. Obviously, our oldest son is 19.
Yep.
He graduated this past year. So this is his first year out of high school. He is still living at home, working a job and a half. And has a girlfriend who he's been dating for a year, who I really like. I think she's just a great girl.
Incredible.
So that's our oldest son. Our second son is 17, junior in high school, just turned 17. And our baby girl is 14, a freshman in high school. So we are just at the very beginning of this transition to adult children, which I think makes for a perfect time to talk about it because it is so fresh and real. And just in case anybody saw the title of this episode, I'm like, oh, I would love to learn how to do that. This is not a how to be a parent of adult children. It's here's the thoughts that we are thinking as we move into this season.
Yeah. And it's the word humiliated comes to mind, and that's probably the wrong usage, but maybe it's more authentic. I think there is a deep humbling in the process of recognizing as your kids get older, you are reminded of your weaknesses. You're reminded of things you didn't do great.
Just as they got older, I was like, because I was reminded of that like all throughout my parenting
career.
But
meaning like as they get older, they can communicate it to you.
Oh, for
They'll
sure.
say it to you.
Yeah.
You know, like they're like now aware. They've been out in the world enough to know like, oh, my parents weren't good at that, or oh, we didn't really take enough time to talk about that. And you're like, oh yeah. I would try to remember everything to talk about, but yeah, you know, and those are humiliating moments where as a parent, and I'm sure people who see this title, I don't know if we put the titles up in the podcast, but are like, oh, that'll be great. But it's not great. There's nothing really great about it other than you love these humans with all your heart. And it's such a privilege to be their parents. But, you know, you got to buckle your seatbelts and prepare for the chapter that we are in. Is a chapter of going, oh my word. So much of what we thought was like pretty good parenting, you're like, oh wow, it had some things missing and some deficiencies, and that's I guess very private and personal.
Okay, yeah, but
share. But.
Yeah, but don't sell ourselves short. I mean,
okay.
I
won't.
I think I'm a pretty level-headed person, probably until it comes to my kids, and I'm absolutely a biased mom. I think our kids are just the best in the whole world, and I like who they are as humans.
So do I.
So I mean, I hope every parent is that way. Maybe. I think I'm realistic.
Well, I didn't think we were discussing. My comments were not on how our kids are and how much we love them, as how we are, and I think as parents. In this title is embracing a new chapter, and it's all great and all, and embracing this chapter, but the embracing of it can be difficult because you're reminded of a lot of the things you didn't do totally right.
Wow, I don't feel that way. I don't feel reminded of the things we haven't done right.
Maybe that's just me. I looked at our insurance coverage today with our oldest, and I was like, uh-oh.
Well,
I don't know. I just think that's how it feels for me when I hear you talk about embracing this new chapter and parenting adult children. It seems not in a bad way, but in a good way. Just kind of like, wow, yeah, I didn't keep the ball in the air the whole time. I did drop the ball at times, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, but I think you're an amazing dad and you have been all the way along, and nobody expects perfection. And
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
I'm way more of a perfectionist than you are, but yeah, I look at the balls we've dropped and like, yeah, but I mean, our goal, we've said this so often in raising kids, is actually that we're not raising kids. We are trying to raise adults.
Yeah.
We are raising children, humans who we know who are going to be adults. And
That was our theme.
that was our thing.
Still is.
We'd say that often. Hey, how is this going to affect their adulthood? When we would talk to them about things, it was, hey, we're telling you this now because when you're an adult, it will matter because XYZ. And so we talked about maybe our standard was really low, but we're like, yeah, we want to raise adults who are contributing citizens, who are respectful, who love Jesus and love other people. I mean, that was pretty much our standard.
Yeah, totally.
And so far, I'd say we're 1 for 1.
Yeah,
with adult kids, he's a contributing
I'm starting
citizen.
to feel a lot better.
Right? No, the emotions for me in this season, gosh, you're so good. They've been way more selfish. They've been way more just feeling the loss of an amount. There's a puppy. A loss of an amazing season that was of raising children, that was us raising them, and now realizing we are not raising our son anymore. We are consultants to our son. We are counselors to our son, but we are not raising him in the same way anymore. And
I agree.
And that means you don't have control over him anymore, like saying you have to come to Thanksgiving. Like,
yeah, I tried.
I know. I like, you tried to bribe him. I tried to be like, please, we're going to be so sad. I probably tried a little bit of emotional manipulation.
Oh no.
all the things that we resort to. Yeah, it is emotional. And I guess I'd be hoping for listeners or people who are going through this or about to go through it or have gone through it, to take a moment to even acknowledge and communicate with your spouse, which obviously this is the first time you and I are doing it. By the way, it's been such a busy week.
Oh my word.
I'm really happy to be sitting here talking with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just arrived before these cameras got turned on from a meeting this morning, and I'm like, oh man, it's gonna, at least we know if we keep this podcast going, we will have meaningful conversations every now and again.
And at least we know for sure now that you actually do go attend your meetings with 4 buttons unbuttoned. So
stop. I can't. I was in a meeting and I did notice a few people like looking down. I was like, what are you looking at? I was like, oh man, my chest.
You did the whole meeting with your shirt unbuttoned that well. That low.
Yeah, I am
it.
an integrated man. I am consistent in all settings. Yeah, I did. I don't even think about it. I think I have so much chest hair I don't even feel the open air, as it were.
You don't even feel the breeze.
No, I'm numb to it.
So speaking of chest hair, our 17-year-old is getting so much chest hair. It's
so
really, speaking of adult children and hair.
Yeah, let's
so
not get
much
into
body
the
hair.
details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't get into the details. So I'm glad to sit around and talk about the emotions of raising adult kids, because it is emotional. And I think there have probably been moments in these last few months where you and I are feeling emotions about this change that probably come out in other ways.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's totally the healthiest.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I totally agree. But I'm excited. I'm excited to dig in and get into this. And I hope that we share some concepts and ideas and stuff that translates to a lot of individuals out there.
Okay, so this is going to surprise you.
Or families.
I asked Zion, who is our 19-year-old son, I said, okay, what's the best thing we've done and the worst thing that we've done?
You did?
Uh-huh. Trying to prep for this podcast. He just happened to walk down. I was like, well, I may as well ask him. Interesting, he didn't have a worst.
What do you mean?
He didn't. I said, no, not in parenting, but in this transition season of transitioning him, in this chapter of transitioning him into adulthood.
Really?
Yeah. Which normally he'd be the kid who'd be like, oh gosh, this and that. And, he's not one to just say nice things for the sake of saying nice things. So he didn't have a worse.
Oh, that's exciting.
Right?
Okay.
Isn't that good?
I love that.
So he didn't have a worse, but he did have a best.
What was it?
It was, it's been really great that you guys, and obviously he's still living at home. This would be very different if we'd moved him off to college. I would have been a wreck. So he's still living at home, working a job and paying rent and, trying to adult in this season of life. But he said, it's been great that your guys' expectations for me have adjusted. Like, you don't expect me to be at family dinner anymore. And even with Thanksgiving, like, that I'm now trying to live my own life and carry my own responsibilities, and that you guys have been okay with that.
Well, I feel so encouraged.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah. That's amazing. I love that.
It's amazing. And one of the things I think we did do right was right after he graduated high school, we sat him down, we gave him his graduation present. And then we just had an open communication of, hey, Zai, you're about to be an adult, and because you're not going off to college, you're going to still be living at home because rent in the places we live is extremely expensive, and we want you to be able to save money and get ahead on life. Good night. Don't waste money around rent when you can live at home, where we still pay for groceries and shampoo and body wash and
stuff
toothpaste.
like that.
Yeah. So there is that. But we had a great conversation. If you remember, sitting outside on that patio, that coffee shop, and yeah, and one of the things that I always think that you've been so good at in parenting that was exemplified here is being honest with our kids about where we're at and not putting up a fake facade of that we know everything and that we have it all together and that we are perfect, but communicating that. And you remember that conversation? We said, hey, let's talk about expectations now that you are a graduate living at home. What's that going to look like?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, it was very meaningful. I mean, again, it's also, the vulnerability that comes with this chapter of parenting is wild because you don't know exactly what's going to be said. And I also think that our candor was motivated probably by this idea that, even your own children relate more to your weaknesses than your strengths. And I felt like if we could continue in each particular successive chapter, show them our weaknesses, that there would be a bonding almost. They'd be like, oh, well, if dad and mom are willing to share, then I'll share mine. And whatever it is that we're facing and whatever it is that we're going through, we can do it together. I can feel safe here. I can come and bring my full self. I can put my weaknesses on the table. And we definitely, there was some intentionality around that because we wanted that chapter of his life, which is well and truly begun. We wanted it to begin that way.
That's such a good point, because truly one of our desires for this chapter in our relationship with our oldest son is that he would still keep coming to us for advice.
Yeah.
Like that is a dream of parents of, this, I don't even know what it's called, young adulthood.
Yeah.
18,
early adulthood,
young adulthood, 18 to 22, is that we want our children to still come to us for advice.
Yeah.
That we aren't in a position, hopefully we have done it well, where we aren't sitting around still telling them what to do, but that we have walked out the relationship in such a way that they could still come to us and ask questions. And I hadn't thought about it the way you just said it, which is so potent and powerful, that if we're willing to share our weaknesses and maybe things that we don't know and things that are confusing to us, that could cultivate a relationship with our son where he feels like he can come to us and say, hey, I don't know about this. What do you think about that? What's going on here? Is a really amazing results of that willingness.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the reasons Zion is doing that, or hope our other kids will as well, is I think you're very tactile, very much a problem solver, but with that propensity and with that capacity, you've yielded it and wielded it wisely. You've not just given answers, even though I can look at you and go, I think she knows exactly in 3 steps how to fix this for this person. But you've been willing to resist that urge and just listen and process with them. And by the way, that's development, right? I mean, this chapter, you're trying to raise an adult, not a kid. A kid, you tell them what to do. An adult, you listen and you strategize and you add strategy to the conversation. Well, what do you think? And what's your inkling? And what's your instincts telling you? And I mean, if I could be so bold, I feel like in a lot of ways that's how our Heavenly Father functions. There's this back and forth. There's this interaction and relationship. And I think a lot of the errors that are done is parents get really stuck. Stuck. Kind of their only role, which is a very necessary role in a particular chapter, is you tell them what to do, you force them what to do.
Oh my gosh, you pick them up and you tell them. I mean,
it's and it gets pretty. We have to admit as parents, it gets very habit. It becomes very habitual. It's like I'm just going to pick them up, and just because they turn 19 and graduate high school, those urges don't go away, but you suddenly are like, oh, wait, I can't just pick them up and like you said, which I appreciate Zion saying. But yeah, you just want to be like, oh, no, just come on Thanksgiving. We'll just work it out. We'll make it work. Like you want to pick them up and carry them there. And that's just not the chapter we're in.
It's like we want to take our life experience and just like give it to them I think in a good way. And by the way, thank you for what you just said, that I don't always tell them what to do. That's one of the biggest compliments you could give me, because yes, because that's not easy for me.
It's not.
That's something that
That's why I say
I've worked on. So the fact that means a lot. But it's like we want to take all of the pain and everything that we've had to earn the hard way.
That's right.
We want to just give it to them and cram it down their throats and just like, do this, no, don't do this. And
go around this, go above this, don't go through this.
And don't you think that works for some things, but other things, there are just areas of life that they have to discover and grow for and find out and learn for themselves. But how do we balance that? And because you do want to protect your kids from harm. We do want to set them up financially and help them make good financial, all those things, to try to give them a head start, but then that can so easily become doing it for them and not letting them become independent, functioning, contributing citizens who love Jesus and love others.
Yeah, such a great comment, and then of course a great question, and my response is inherently theological, and I don't want to apologize for that, but I want to add a caveat. We are pastoring in a local community of faith. It's not the only thing we do, clearly, but it's one of the things that we definitely are most passionate about. And so it's very easy for me to give answers and responses that are so anchored to the divine and how I see God. And I don't know, I think if I was all-knowing and omnipresent and, omniscient, all-knowing, all-present, all-powerful, omnipotent. Like I start using all the terms.
Omnipotent, I think that's funny.
Omnipotent is, I enjoy it. I think it's a little more than omnipotent.
I prefer omnipotent. That's how we sang it in the songs. I can't remember the song. Anyway, continue.
I'm going to lose my train of thought, I'm telling you.
Yes.
But no, I think God is so long-suffering. And God in our partnership, he does not merely just tell us what to do. There's a time where you're on a cliff and God's like, no, we all understand those extreme cases, but in most cases, God is like very long-suffering, gracious. And I think there is a king, and I believe in him, and he is God. I think sometimes we want to be the God of our children. And I mean, I want to be my own God. I want to be my marriage God. But I want to be the parenting God too. And I want to be Zion's God. I want to be Elliot's God. I want to be Grace's God. And sometimes I want to be God for their friends. And I want to be God for their love interest. And, you just
feel like I could just make this better for you and easier for you. Let me just fix it.
I'm going to fix everything, And to what end? And is that the best route? And I would argue for anyone listening, and certainly for ourselves, that though you might get initially the outcome you think is necessary and needed, but I don't think there's a development and a maturation that we all need as humans.
What do you think as parents is the heart posture or the internal thinking and processing that we need to cultivate and develop in ourselves so that we can not try to play God for our adult children? By the way, I love what you said. That is such a powerful thought, that think about how amazing and wonderful God is in all of his wisdom compared to us, and that he doesn't sit around and tell us what to do for every detail of our lives. He directs us. He's involved. He wants relationship, but he
rarely overrides.
He rarely overrides, and he almost lets us set the pace in terms of the relationship, which is really amazing and
crazy.
And right, what we're trying to do as parents is let our son determine how much does he want from us. But back to my original question, what do you think is the heart posture that parents of adult children need to be able to do that? Because it's not easy.
I think it's two sides of a coin, and it's availability and humility. I think both those things are imperative. The humility probably informs the availability, as opposed to arrogance and opinion, or self-sufficiency and certainty. I think self-sufficiency and certainty is very can be very deflating for young adult children. it's like, no, I knew in 1978 I did this and used it. It's like, Dad, you don't. One of my favorite things to do with our kids, because I think it's honest, is tell them I can't imagine. I literally can't imagine having a developing body and a developing brain in the middle of the technological boom and social media, internet, and soon to be AI, which is going to change the world as we know it. I can't imagine. I can't imagine being my daughter right now and being 14 years old and going to high school with those dynamics in play. High school was hard enough in 1995 and 6 and 7.
It started in 92.
And now here we are, and they are heroic. I think a lot of young adults today are heroic. To be a contributing citizen as a young adult in this climate, in this culture, in this world, wherever you are on this planet, I think you're heroic and you're amazing. And I think we always felt, even as youth pastors, when our kids were little babies, but we were taking care of teenagers, was this idea of, man, if there's a way we could tell young adults all over the world that we think they're heroic and amazing, that'd be great. Well, we thought, well, if we didn't do a good job of that, we'll do a good job with our kids. So I think humility and availability, meaning humility is like, listen, I actually don't know, but I'm here and I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. I love that you gave that analogy. I think it's making a choice to respect our kids and respect our adult children.
It's a great way to say it.
They are. Yeah. To me, it's so intuitive in marriage. I know your weaknesses, but I know your strengths. And I can't tell you how many times in a given day I have to make a choice. Am I going to focus on Judah's weaknesses right now, or I'm going to focus on his strengths? Am I going to get annoyed at the little things, or am I going to celebrate the big, amazing things?
Yep.
And as you're saying that, I'm realizing that's actually a discipline, an exercise that we need to do with our son right now, is to choose to celebrate the amazing parts about him instead of focusing and fixating on the things that he's still young and immature and a 19-year-old boy in, and really fostering that respect for them, because it actually is genuine. And here's the thing, if it's not genuine, your kids are going to feel it, right?
Oh man.
But it is a genuine, oh, sorry, I just spit. That's gross.
I didn't see it.
No, that's nice. It just got on my paper. It is a genuine respect we have for who our kids are. Yeah. And for what they're going through, facing, fighting, how incredibly they have developed in this world that is so different than the world we grew up in. And
maybe you were also speaking to familiarity, which breeds a level of contempt of sorts. Meaning take each other for granted, you assume things, you presume things, you answer questions they're not asking, you tell them what to do when they're looking for someone to talk to, because you are familiar. And there is that lack of respect. But Zion at 19 is really his own young man, and we are here to be available. But he well and truly can start making decisions for himself. And when he makes decisions to be near to us and to communicate with us and to walk with us, treating that with a level of celebration that we would give to anybody else, frankly, that we gave to 19-year-olds in our youth ministry. Yeah,
and that is an advantage that we've had. The first time Zai called me to ask for relationship advice, he's like, Mom, this is what's happening with my girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. What do I do? I was on cloud nine. I remember. Right? I was like, Judah, Zai just called. I'm like trying to play it cool. But you know what I think another heart posture that parents need in this season that we've had to find is, Jesus help us, not finding our identity and not finding our own personal sense of worth in the apparent success or demise or lives of our adult children.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've told this story so often. When our oldest Zion was probably 2 or 3, I think I was pregnant with Elliot, so he must have been 2.5. And we were sitting on the front row at church. Remember it? This is your parents were the pastors. We were youth pastors at that point. And we're sitting on the front row, packed auditorium, and Zion started flipping out. Your dad was preaching. And it wasn't like a loud moment. It was a quiet moment. And Zion started throwing a 2-year-old tantrum. And I got so embarrassed. Like, when you just want to crawl into your skin and absolutely die.
Crawl into your skin? You crawl under the pew?
Crawl under the pew or out of your
Crawl
skin.
into your skin. I like that. I've never heard that before.
You know
That's
what?
a new one.
I'm
All
so
right.
bad.
Drink a little more Celsius on that note. All right.
I'm so bad at what are they called? Sayings?
Cliches?
Cliches.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm really bad at cliches. I
Yes,
just
you
need
are.
to attempt to stop.
But
all
who cares?
Cliches,
You're good at
but-
a lot of other things. So.
Okay. So I wanted to crawl under the pew.
Yeah.
Crawl out of my skin because I'm so embarrassed. I'm thinking, oh, all the parents are going to take their kids out of the youth ministry right now. If we can't even control our own son, how are parents going to trust and bring their youth? And so I like picked him up, and there was that side door, and he's like, it's like a pickup where like his arms are flailing on one side and his legs are flailing on the other side behind me, and you're just like grabbing onto his waist and he's flailing. And I went out the door to just like, I was going to let him have it. And the voice of God and the Holy Spirit, I hear him sometimes. It's not always, but this was one of those very clear moments of God speaking to me. And he just said to me, Chelsea, do not discipline him out of your embarrassment right now. That's never going to be a good thing for him. And I think that has helped carry me throughout all of our kids.
Yeah.
That we will never react to them in a way because we feel like they're making us look bad.
Yeah.
This has been a new reiteration for that, of being proud of our kids and loving them. And who cares what anybody else in the world thinks about our kids and how they are in this season.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think if you want to embrace, I love this word, embracing a new chapter, parenting adult children. Man, if you take that ego of how my kids make me look into this chapter,
I have something on my pants.
it is, oh, you sure do.
Oh, that's awkward.
Well, I was getting into a very good
I
point,
know.
but that's like, that's like chalk. So interesting.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just glad
hide
it's not
it.
on my pants.
I know you'd be freaking out. I just said
would've
it
cut tape.
so you didn't freak out.
Tape, No, I
Let
think,
go of ego.
yeah, just very few things would be more toxic and more detrimental.
Detrimental.
What did I say?
Detrimental.
Yeah, I did a lot of talking last night. So detrimental to the relationship than really both approaches. Making your ego how great your kids are, which, by the way, if you take credit with how great they are, then you got to take credit with their challenging seasons. But if you're willing to go, they belong to God ultimately, and we are temporary stewards. And the day's going to come, our kids are going to have kids. How they raise those kids is going to be interesting for sure. But it doesn't directly always reflect us. They are their own humans. And I know for a fact, I love my mom and dad. You love your mom and dad. But there are decisions we have made about our own kids that really have very little to do. Sometimes it has a lot to do with what your parents did back when you were in their home, but sometimes it doesn't. And so I don't think it's incredibly accurate. I think it's a little bit fictitious to think your kids are this direct reflection of your good or your bad. They are their own human, and they belong to God.
Yep.
And detaching from that seems to be almost completely healthy.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm being proud of your kids is amazing. And celebrating that and celebrating them and expressing that, being proud of them. Like that, it's probably such a fine line, like being proud of them, but not letting our identity or our ego or our worth being tied to their performance. Like our son who's playing basketball right now, he has a good game. Elliot had a good basketball game the other night. How many people have you personally told his stat line to?
Not enough, but a lot.
Like, I mean, I'm on a solid 10 probably.
Oh yeah, easily 10. I didn't know we were thinking in those small numbers.
But you're exactly. Like, not enough. It's like, I wanted to tell 20 people, like, because we're so proud of him. And I will talk about ourselves awkwardly in conversations to talk about how great our kids are. Like, I love them so much. And I want to be proud of them. And I think that's healthy. But what isn't healthy is when that becomes my identity or my ego or a sense of worth or value for me.
I mean, I think, the story of the prodigal son, which is in Luke 15 of the New Testament, God reveals himself as he's asked, why do you hang out with such bad people? He's like, well, you don't get me then. And he tells these three parables, ending with the last one with a father and two sons. And, it's become popularized and notarized and all that. But it is an amazing thing to watch the father in this parable, which reveals the heart and character of God. When the youngest son is wasteful, deeply and terribly wasteful with his inheritance, and goes and wastes it in what seems to be a pretty short period of time, where the older son stays at home and is busy and diligent in the family business, so to speak. And yet when the younger son returns home having wasted everything, literally lived selfish and wasteful, the father does not rebuke him. He embraces him and loves him. And that, to me, speaks volumes about how the father, his identity and worth is not in what his kids do with their inheritance. It's the fact that this is their kid and they love him. And God is incredible at challenging us, correcting us, but he's very gracious and loving, and his love never ends and never stops. And I think it's a sad day, as you move into a chapter of adult children where you start to punish emotionally, mentally, financially kids who have maybe not always made the best decision. I think those are scary moments where you've got to check yourself. Am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for them?
That's such a crazy thought that I've never thought of before, that in the story of the prodigal son, or actually like the lost sons, because actually
or
both
the two sons,
both sons were lost.
Yeah.
One was lost in the home. The other was lost
Well
outside
said.
of the home. But that the father never stopped to consider what are the servants thinking of the fact that I am blessing my son who just came home? What are my friends, what are the peers thinking who I'm inviting to this party to celebrate his return? Like, that he just did that wasn't even a thought. It's very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Speaking of finances, Shells, you were speaking of finances. You did a little bit. I am going to read you a stat, and I want you to guess the number. Okay. In the a study was done in 2018. This is reported in the USA Today. Study was done by Merrill Lynch, the finance company.
Okay.
2018. What percentage of kids ages 22, so post-college, ages 22 to 40, which is a wide range, but
kids?
Yeah.
I like
right?
this stat.
Right?
I'm just out of kidhood at 45.
I think, adult children or whatever.
Okay.
What percent of that age group do you think are still financially supported by their parents between the ages of 22 and 40?
21%.
What makes you think that would be the number?
Why 21? Because it's more interesting than 20. But I obviously just think 20%. I don't know. My life experience at this point is thinking like there's a solid number, but I would think 20 is still like 25%, 1/4. I don't know.
Yeah, I probably would have gone with 25.
Okay.
So very similar.
Right in there.
Yeah, very similar guess. Yeah,
yeah.
maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 4.
Exactly.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
This number is going to blow your mind.
What?
Yes. 65%.
You are sitting here telling me that the ages of 22 to 40, 65% in what country?
The United States of America, the one that you and I reside in. Wait for it. It gets even. The numbers.
This is what's wrong with the economy. Like doing that. I don't even know what that means, actually. I'm not an economist. This is why we're having struggles in, like, I don't know what I'm going to say.
This is why people are in debt.
I just like when like really incredibly smart people on podcasts are like, and that's the reason the economy struggles. And I'm like, it is? Why? Why is that?
Wow. If we all knew the reason the economy struggled, that'd be amazing.
Wow,
we could all fix
it's that
it.
simple? Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay.
Out of those 65%, so the kids aged 22 to 40 who are being supported by their parents still, which is 40-year-old.
40?
These are like parents.
40?
These are parents who are retired, right? When you're 40, your parents are 65, 70. Okay, wait for it. Guess how much the average a month.
Where'd you get these numbers?
I already told you. USA Today 2018 survey by Merrill Lynch.
Oh, yeah, you did. Sorry.
I cite my sources.
Yes, you do.
Guess what the average amount of money per month is that these parents support these children?
Don't tell me it's more than $5,000 a month.
Oh, no, that would be insane. I mean, that got Wes.
Why was everyone laughing? Like, I actually don't know why everyone's laughing. Oh. I just thought, I don't know. That's where my mind was like, I guess we're just getting crazy. So I guess they're paying them salaries.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, it's $1,000 a month?
Because $5,000 a month is a very amazing salary.
It's a great salary. Yeah, that's why I mean, we're dealing with 60-some% here. Bear with me.
The average is 65%. I mean, it's $718 a month. Which, okay, that's really small compared to $5,000, I guess.
Yeah, but I was being outrageous.
Yeah, and that's per kid, by the way. You think of families who have 2 or 3. That absolutely has blown my mind. Does that make you feel better about our son's exorbitant car insurance rates?
Yes, you shouldn't say that on camera. But it also is like, if they're getting coffee at Starbucks every day, I actually want to die. That's a terrible thing to say. I mean, I just want to, I just hope none of those, I was going to say children, that's not an accurate statement. Any of those young adults in this country are going to Starbucks to get like a venti, because that's like $9. So I hope.
Right.
I mean, I hope that's going to like really good, like food and stuff.
Or like I don't know, student loan repayment. And not trying to judge parents who do that.
Oh my God, not at all.
I'm like,
no. We're talking generalities here, 65%. Like there's extenuating circumstances. Who are we?
Also fascinating.
We're very much still helping support our children.
I mean, he lives. As I mentioned, we still pay his shampoo.
We pay a lot more than $700 a month.
Yeah, we still buy his shampoo and body wash. So interesting. I was talking to my mom recently, and she was telling me, I think she was born in 1951, so she would have graduated high school in 68 or 69, 1968 or 69. She said when she graduated, it was just, you graduated, you just moved out. Like, it wasn't even an option to even live at home anymore when you were 18 for my mom and her.
Whoa.
And my dad said the same thing. Like, it was just.
Shout out to the 60s.
Man. Right? I mean, it was, wow. I think rent.
Is that why everyone went to Woodstock or?
Probably. I think rent was also a lot cheaper back then. So my mom moved from Spokane, Washington to Portland, Oregon to go live with her. To go live with her sister and met my dad. Anyway. I
mean, it worked out, but yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Another interesting stat, and this is where I find it fascinating.
You are full of interesting stats.
I am. A third of those parents who support their children ages 22 to 40, they say their support of their children puts them in financial duress to support their kids.
Oh, tell me the number again.
A third, so 33%. So 33 out of every 100.
That $700 is hurting them.
Yeah, $700 is
a month.
So really significant. So,
it's a lot of love.
It's a lot of something.
At the same time, I'm like, do it. Like, go be you, love your kids. It's all good. I get it. I actually get it. I'm just surprised.
And there's so many unique extenuating circumstances that are, numbers are so hard because they don't tell stories of individuals. And I'm sure if we heard most of these individual stories, we'd be like, oh yeah, I do that too for my kid.
Right.
At the same time, I don't want to. I love my kids. I don't want them to create financial duress and distress for me when they're between the ages of 22 and 40. How do we give our kids
this
support?
Episode is far more relevant than I realized. That's all I got to say. Holy goodness.
Right. How do we give our kids support and protection to the extent that they aren't unnecessarily hurt and pained, while at the same time not enabling them to live off of us or to use us as a crutch? Or I don't know. I don't even know what I'm asking, but just love to hear your thoughts on, I don't want to end up there. And maybe some parents do, and I don't want to judge them for that. It's not a biblical precedent. This is us, you and I, talking as parents. But what are we going to do now so that we don't end up there?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's got to be said. It's probably been said enough, but if there are reasons, people need $700 a month from their parents, it literally could be treatment and could be addiction and disease and challenges. And so, there's so many things that you and I are deeply empathetic around.
Absolutely.
And just any kind of hardship. You never know. People go through divorce and suddenly they don't have any income and they're trying to help their kids and pay for their kids, and they got to go to their parents and say, hey, can you help your grandkids? And so look, if you're giving $700 so that your grandkids can have food and stuff, I'd do that in a heartbeat. So
Yeah.
statistics can be so misleading.
Exactly, and they can be
and yet
so
the number is
depersonalizing.
still, I would imagine, for most people listening, staggering and surprising. But I think it speaks to probably the impetus around this episode, which is like, man, are we developing our children to be contributing citizens, to be the kind of individuals who want to get in the mix and be diligent and be consistent and be faithful, be true to themselves. There's a level of fulfillment that comes with responsibility. I'm a big proponent when you look at the kind of the original storyline of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament in the Garden of Eden. I like to call them kind of the 4 elements of a healthy soul, right? You need rest, you need relationship, you need restriction, but you need responsibility.
Yep.
And all of those things are blessings. Rest is a blessing. Relationships, such a blessing. Restriction, necessary no. Saying no to things you could say yes to, but you're just saying, no, I don't need that. That's not going to serve
they're a
me.
gift from God.
An extra
to us.
slice of cake,
Yep.
I must go ahead and say no. But then responsibility, which is like you take on a level of responsibility that you follow through with. I am not, Chelsea and I are not like the big, like, work hard, earn it, deserve it, pull your bootstraps up. Like that's not our messaging. That's not even the gospel of grace and what we believe. So much of what we do, we don't
Yep.
deserve at all,
Yep.
right? I don't deserve to wake up in the morning. But responsibility isn't about responsibility. It's not about hard work. It's not about hard work. It's about ultimately what I'm talking about is what's good for your soul. And I think as a parent wanting to raise adults is that area of responsibility, teaching your young people, your young adults in your family, like, hey, get rest, margin over millions, I boundaries over billions. Like those are some of my mentalities. I want to teach that, right? But I want to teach them also to say no, necessary no. I want to teach them how important people are. They're the most important. Relationship over everything. But let's not neglect that Adam and Eve were set in the garden and they were called to tend the garden.
They were called to work.
They were given a responsibility. Work was a blessing.
Yep. This was before there was sin.
Before there was sin,
everything was
that's right.
in the perfect
Paradise.
state, perfect
Euphoria.
paradise of humanity.
Yep.
There was work.
Genesis 1, Genesis 2. Yeah, huge. And I think that's a big deal to us, teaching our children that, hey, this following through with your responsibility, it's not because like you need the money. You need to be a hard worker. Well, sure, those things are fine and practical, but like, hey, this will be good for your soul. Actually good for your soul. Like your mental health will improve. Scientifically, it's proven.
Yep.
When you follow through. And what we are saying when we say responsibility is teaching that little truth that says, when you on a regular basis do what you don't feel like doing,
Yep.
just this little nugget, something happens to your brain and your body. And it's very, very beneficial.
I do think one of the drivers and motivators for responsibility is consequences.
Yeah,
Is
I agree.
if I don't show up for work, I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
If I get fired, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. If I can't pay rent, I'm not going to have a place to live.
Yeah.
And obviously those went to very
can't
extreme
eat. I can't-
consequences. As we're having this conversation, I'm feeling so compelled as a mom of a 19-year-old to make sure that I am not unnecessarily protecting him from consequences of his own actions. That part of the letting go isn't just, okay, you don't have to show up for family dinner. Okay, yeah, you're on your own for Thanksgiving. Part of the letting go is me being a mediator between him and the natural consequences of the decisions that he's going to make in life.
Yeah.
That, it's like I want to have a whole conversation about it offline between me and you about our son. What is our plan for making sure he is feeling the consequences of his actions? That he's either getting the positive consequences or the negative. Parents can try to protect from both, but
Which, of course, philosophically, I could argue that all consequences are positive.
That's a great
you
point.
burn your hand on a stove. That's a negative, is it? Because if you leave your hand on that stove and you don't feel pain, you're going to leave your hand on that stove and not have a hand.
Have you ever read stories of children? There is a disease where you can't feel pain. Very few. It's a very rare
There's
disease.
nothing positive about that.
But I don't think anybody's lived past the age of early 20s who has the disease where they can't feel pain, because pain actually is a protector.
It's a preserver.
And
Yeah.
there's a thought. As parents in this stage, are we trying to protect him from pain in a way that
That
he's
will
not
serve
learning
him.
from. Pain that will serve him.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so hard because you love those babies.
We don't want that at all.
So much, and you don't want it, but in a lot of ways, it can be the most loving thing that we can do.
I agree. I totally agree.
How would you say faith, both for us and for him, has played a role in this season of parenting, in this new chapter?
Well, I mean, I think it's the ultimate cheat. And what I mean by that is like, I believe in sovereignty, and sovereignty starts with God gave us a firstborn son. Then he gave us a secondborn son. Then he gave us a baby girl. And nobody can claim credit for the maturation of a human in a woman's womb. I mean, that is a mystery. It's magical. It's mystical. It's incredible. And it's so divine and sovereign. And we've been given, our firstborn son was a preemie. And
spent the first 2 weeks of his life in a little incubator in the NICU at the hospital.
It was wild.
And okay, and sorry, I know it's so hard not to still see your kids that way.
Yeah.
Like I think about it, I go there, it feels like yesterday. It's hard to imagine him as this adult now suffering the consequences of his own poor decisions if he makes them. Like, I still want to protect that baby. So sorry, you said that, it just brought up a wave of emotions for sure.
And I think that's where you and I, if we're really honest, what informs us on a daily basis is this idea that God has a father, and he is eternal, and he is all-knowing, all-powerful.
Did you say that God has a father?
Zion has a father.
Oh, okay. You said God has a father.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, Jesus had a father. But you're going,
Zion,
okay.
Zion has a heavenly father who is God, who made him. I love how, let's make a baby together. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know how to make babies. I know how to have sex. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a really big quantum leap for us as humans to walk around talking about, we made a couple babies. Did you, bro? So we use those terms loosely, but ultimately there is a father of us all, and Zion's relationship with him is most important. He's sovereign. He's divine. He's guiding our son. He's watching over him at night.
Yeah.
He's guiding him through his days. And so the idea of, is our faith an advantage, is somewhat laughable. It's kind of a laughable question to me, because that's like, gravity, how involved is gravity in your daily life? It's like, well, it's kind of everything, in a way. And there's the God of gravity. So how important is he? And what role does he play? I would say everything, all the time, everywhere. Like, without him, there is no life. And so as it pertains to parenting adult children or children at all, there is this today in my bathtub, as I do most mornings, just saying, oh God, be with Zion and Elliot and Grace, and keep them and watch over them. And that's me every day going, these are your kids. I know I'm a temporary steward. I know they kind of look like me, but you made them, and you called them, and you gifted them, and you gave them talent. And so I give them to you again, and I ultimately trust you with them. So there's a relief there. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to duck responsibility, but I am trying to honor the sovereignty that is very overt to me in this whole process.
Yeah, to me, I think of it like truly handing them over to God. As cheesy as that sounds.
That's right.
Like you said, Zion does have a dad, and he's not just you, but he has a eternal heavenly father who is God in heaven. And in those moments of letting go of control, of letting go of giving my opinions to my son, of letting go of, it's every time. I don't just see that as a releasing. I literally see that. I picture it in my mind. I can't tell you how often I do that as a God. I'm handing this over to you.
Wow.
Yeah. So for me, it hasn't been just a letting go of responsibility and just but a releasing it of, God, I'm giving this to you, and you are taking care of your son. And what's that scripture? God of Israel never sleeps. He never slumbers, that God's always watching over him. He's always, that, and it's not a releasing as much as it is a giving it to God. And that has helped me so much. I think the other thing that I wanted to say before we conclude in prayer is thinking back to those 65% of parents who spend $718 a month on their adult children still in this country. I wonder how much of that is guilt driven, to be honest.
Whoa.
of, like you started the episode off with, this is the season where we realize the mistakes we made as parents. And that is challenging.
Oh my God,
It's
compensation.
Yeah, it's sobering would maybe be a better word for it.
Word for it.
And I wonder if there is a continued weight of responsibility of, as parents of adult children, thinking, well, now I have to make up for the wrongs, for the things I did wrong when they were kids. And I'm saying this because at the season we're at, I'm telling myself not to do this, but being able to let go of the mistakes that we made in regards to our children, in regards to Zion specifically, because we have not been perfect. That takes faith.
Yeah.
To me, that takes a relationship with a God who is forgiving me, who knows forgiveness, who is bigger and more powerful than my wrongs. And that requirement of faith for me is really significant.
Yeah, there's that letting go that you're talking about that comes with that, like, God, I'm going to trust you with my successes with my kids, but I'm going to trust you with the things that I just didn't do. I didn't follow through.
Yeah.
I didn't make sure that was clear. I didn't, I mean, it gets down to evenings where you're just tired as a parent. I think most of the things we miss as parents is because we're tired. I'm serious.
And every parent's tired.
And I think parents think, oh, I must be some horrible, difficult, challenging. And even I think of parents who use substances and, maybe their kids are going to grow up and be like, my dad was always drinking or my mom was always smoking. And it's like, well, I mean, people are doing the best they know how and they're tired and that gives them a little, jolt of excitement or whatever. And maybe kids grow up and think like, I realized my dad was drinking. It's like, well, being an adult isn't easy and raising kids isn't easy.
Yeah.
And so we have a long runway of empathy there. But I agree. The advantage of trusting God with your kids is hard to put into words. It is a release. It is a freedom. It is a trust. It is a handing over. But between me and you, like, I go to God, not just a hand, like, God, I trust you with my kids, but I trust you with what I didn't do for them.
Yeah.
I trust you with what I wasn't able to follow through on. I really trust you with that. And in a way, we're trying to remind our kids that is ultimately, as our kids are becoming young adults, we're telling them, hey, there's going to be lots of things you're going to be like, yo, why didn't we do that?
I've told them I'll pay for their counseling.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's
Maybe
right.
that will
That's
maybe that'll put me in the 65% of parents.
Oh yeah, wait a minute.
Financially,
if we
support
pay for their
kids.
counseling, we are definitely in the 65%.
I was like, hey, I know I haven't been a perfect
counseling
mom.
these days is so expensive.
Right? Yeah, I'll pay for therapy. Well, I would love to close in prayer for ourselves, for parents, for kids.
Love to.
There's something to me about beginnings and endings that matter.
Yeah.
And they're significant. And yeah, praying that this goes right. Pray? Do you want to pray? You want me to?
You pray.
Okay.
You're such a good mom.
Oh, I do love being a mom. It is my favorite thing. I love
really
so
good at
much
it.
of what I get to do, but being a mom is my favorite. I think that's where some of the emotions come from.
I think you meant to say being a wife is your favorite, but I understand what you
It's
mean.
different, but yeah. All right, let's pray. Jesus, we thank you so much that for everybody listening, for us, that these children in this season who are becoming adults, God, that they really are yours. They are your sons. They are your daughters. Before they were ever ours, they were truly yours.
Yes, God.
God, I pray for ourselves, for everybody listening, Lord, that we would actually have enough faith and trust in you that we could appropriately let go of our children as they become adults, that you would give us wisdom, you would give us strategies, you would give us creative thoughts, but Lord, that you would help us to truly hand our kids over to you, knowing that you don't sleep, you don't slumber, you are watching over them, you are protecting them, you are keeping them safe, you are real to them. And God, I pray for any parents right now who are fighting and struggling with guilt for things that we know we did wrong while we were parents. Jesus, I pray that you would come right now in these moments, and if we haven't asked for forgiveness from you or from forgiveness from our children, if we need to, I pray that you would lead us and prompt us, that we would be willing to humble ourselves and ask for forgiveness. But then, Lord, I pray that you would help us to let that go. And God, I pray that in those moments of forgiveness, you would help us to forgive ourselves for our shortcomings as parents. And Jesus, we can only do that in the light of how much you love us. So Lord, reveal to us your love. Show us how powerful you are. Show us your significance so that we can truly let go and see our kids flourish in a whole new season of life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.